All right, podcast number 2 with Evie and Pete. So today our topic is what is up and coming in the industry, strength and conditioning industry specifically. And we're going to gather my point of view and Pete's point of view. The difference between, I would say, is I'm obviously a younger up and coming coach and Pete is more of a veteran. So we're going to get both perspectives on this. And yeah, anything you want to say?
Not really, other than I guess the perspective are obviously going to be calibrated by, I've had a lot of time in this business industry, whatever the hell you want to call it, profession. Evie, you have just started a few years ago, but I think your passion for it is going to allow you to learn more than most.
Definitely.
So
yeah. All right, cool. So our first thing that I thought about that's up and coming in our industry is DB Hammer. I see DB Hammer resurfacing. A lot of his content, his type of training has been resurfaced. That's how I got into it, I think, is because I saw other young coaches starting to read more about it. So I was like, oh, let me dive into this. And Pete has already read this. So when was the last? When did you read?
The first exposure. So
yeah, when was your
first exposure was sport.net, and that was Corfus and Fichter running that, and it was at the time. There was some, I think it was, I want to say early 2000s, and there was,
Early 2000s.
I don't want to say there was controversy surrounding it, but there was definitely some sort of mystique or aura, because everybody thought it was Jay Schroeder. And I know Dan had a lot of experience with Jay, and actually I had some experience with him too, a short one, but it was very dense. He actually him and a guy named Dennis Thompson were selling this thing, going around selling this thing called the ARP, Active Recovery Protocol. And what it was a stim machine that you did like eccentric contraction stim. It was at the time it was like, whoa, this is conceptually weird. But anyways, Jay and Dennis would travel around, and I was lucky enough to work for. This was my first job with John Alder. This is why I love this job, is because, when I walked in, John had all of this. It was like a kid in a candy store in a futuristic gym. Because at the time we had a Tendo unit. No one really had that.
Oh, wow.
We had Forza strength equipment, a Krimpinzik rack, which was like a monolith type deal. We had an inertial impulse trainer, which you only see on Dan Fichter's Instagram channel.
That's kind of how I feel in your gym.
Yeah,
Like kid in a candy store, like you said.
But in
like,
a futuristic gym, because none of the places had this, and we had this obviously. It was in a separate room in the back of a powerhouse. But anyways, John always being one to kind of seek the upper level of knowledge and experience of training. And at the time, it was Adam Archuleta was like the hot guy, because he came out, this kid who wasn't even recruited out of high school, I think Arizona State, and then he came out and broke all of these NFL combine records. So of course, what was behind it? He trained with a guy named Jay Schroeder out of Jay Schroeder out of I think you say Schroeder.
I think it's Schroeder, yeah.
But anyway, they were out of Arizona, so Jay would come up with Dennis, and then just hanging out with Jay and just asking him questions. I look back now, and all of that stuff at the time was over my head. But then reading Cal Dietz's triphasic training kind of made sense of what Jay was trying to say. And then going back and looking at his protocols, that's what he meant. Okay, that's what was going on. And at the time when InnoSport had come out, the protocols looked eerily similar, although there were some key differences. Jay was a high frequency, high volume guy. They both use autoregulation. It kind of like they use, like Jay would say, we'll take him to a drop off, and I was like, what does that mean? So instead of doing like 3 sets of 8 or some sort of prescription, you went until the quality reached a certain percentage output, and then you stopped. So your volume for the day was based off of performance.
Based off how you felt, yeah.
Right. Not how you felt, how you actually did.
How you did.
So there's 2 different ways to do autoregulation. I guess we can kind of get into that. There's subjective, and then there's objective, right? Subjective meaning it's perception based, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So like RPE, right? Everybody does this whole RPE shit. And the thing is, they don't really know what the hell they're doing.
I would say I would like more like an easier way to say it is reps in reserve, I guess.
Well, that's a way to do it, but you're still perceiving what you have.
Right.
Whereas an objective measure of that is actually using like what's used now is the velocity base cutoffs.
Right.
And back then,
that's objective.
that's objective because you got a number, right? And the only tool back then was a tendo unit. So when people refer to tendo units, that's at the time was the only thing measuring bar speed. And I want to say Jay used that, or he used the stopwatch. He used the stopwatch for a lot of stuff, not just for isometrics, but like he would time concentric reps and stuff. But anyways, Jay would use that. And then going back to the InnoSport connection, a lot of DB Hammer stuff was for time as well, using isometrics for certain things. I would say obviously there was a difference because DB wrote a book, and that's the thing. Apparently this DB Hammer wasn't this guy's real name apparently.
Yeah.
So no one really knew who he was. The only guys I guess that met him were Corfus and Fichter, possibly only Fichter. But anyways, so it was off of InnoSport, but a lot of the protocols were based off of the methodics were based off of time, and then the overall volume was managed by performance. So the concept of auto-regulation started in those strength and conditioning circles back then. So yeah, that's how far it kind of goes back, and a lot of again at the time it's like, man, I don't really understand what this means, and then just kind of just keeping it in the crosshairs. Now, 10, 15 years down the road, we have now velocity-based training, and there's auto-regulatory principles based on performance.
Like I said, it's resurfacing the auto-regulatory type work.
Yeah, and that's
DB Hammer.
and that's always been around. So like Dr. Mann's APRE is similar. Right? You're managing volume and loading based on performance, and that was he developed that out of the DeLorme. Charlie Kroll. Well, you were just in. You waved at Yes, I did wave at C. Kroll, that thing's saying. But anyways, God, what was I saying? So the regulation of the training is based off of acute performance. A lot of times when you are, so if you look at that, right, everybody wants to have all of this, like this leads into the bigger question about periodization and that word, right? So in this case, periodization is something that kind of happens as opposed to something that's prescribed, right? Where it's like you have this much volume to do in a day. Well, you can use velocity-based tools or rep performance loading parameters to actually determine the tonnage of the day. And the tonnage is kind of like it spits out at the end. Gabby. What's up, Gabby?
So what do you think about like all these types of DB Hammer coming back into?
See, that's the thing. The only guy. It's like the old saying about Westside. The only guys that train truly the Westside style were the guys at Westside. So the only really real ones that did DB Hammer were the ones that trained under them. But like with any method, right, or any whatever, is coaches are going to take and extrapolate and apply what they understand. Well, the good ones are what they understand, and then what can help. It's not to, a lot of this stuff. A lot of people that do these programs these days, and I don't mean to be shooting on people with these programs, but it seems like a lot of them are pulled out of their asses. Meaning, like, okay, did you really try this? What did this yield? And you could try it on yourself as a coach. That's fine. But you got to understand, like, sometimes the people you train have a totally different set of stressors in the day that affect it. So a lot of the times, like having a template is not a bad thing because you maybe have like a list of movements, but then your management system of volume and loading, is behind that, and the volume and the loading that may vary over time. Some may, and if you're measuring stuff, if you're actually like tracking stuff, you'll see, okay, somebody's better on a higher intensity, lower volume. Yeah. Somebody could be in between. Somebody's on a higher volume, low intensity.
And that's just the art of coaching, because anybody can write down a program to get somebody like an overall general person stronger, but when you come down to the individual, that's where the art of coaching happens.
Yeah, and having that ability, and I'm not saying like the subjective end of it is not invaluable. No, it's not, because that kind of helps you, the quote unquote the coach's eye, seeing stuff, if it, to borrow a term from Charlie Francis, if it don't look right, it don't fly right, sort of deal. Like, and you'll know, like today, Mason had come in and he was looking pretty good in his warm-up extended drills. Like, he looked poppy, he looked snappy, and he had a pretty good day. And then once he hit the deadlift hurdle hop set, it was a very dense set. You're looking at
Taxing, yeah.
yeah,
He
it was
dying
a little bit.
bit.
He was dying a little bit. So what did we do? We said, hey, go down instead of the 5 reps and 5 reps, you're gonna go 3 and 3 for the last 2
Right.
sets. But we still got a high quality of work done. So in the end, would it have been great to get 25 jumps and 25 deadlifts in? Yeah. But you know what? If
Where's the quality at?
yeah, if
We wanna
even
see
20% of that is done horribly, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
Especially something that's high effort, high speed. You want to make sure that that's at a high quality at all times.
Yeah, and I was listening to a podcast, I forgot which one, probably Austin Yoakum, but about how the more advanced lifters and coaches, they know to leave a rep or 2 in the tank,
Oh, yeah.
because whether if they need, like, let's say for an athlete, you need to perform on the field that day, whether it's in practice or a game, you need a rep or 2 in the tank so you can do that in the field. Because if you're always failing, what's that failure bad technique? It's teaching you how to fail. I forgot where I heard that from, but basically, if you're constantly failing, is it not teaching you how to fail instead of the opposite?
I think, it doesn't really, it goes my battery again. To me, the failure thing, that's actually okay with me, but here's the deal, right?
But constantly, you think, even?
Well, here's the deal. Here's my antithesis to that, right? Failure is like muscular failure, I think, is what people are talking about, right? But it always comes with a cost. When you're training athletes are not lifters, right? They're not coming here to lift. Okay, concept from LSIF is you are using lifts or weights or whatever training modalities to drive biomotor qualities of the sport.
Yep.
Okay, for a lot of kids, obviously these days it's very basic. So yeah, basic strength training will take them a long way. In my protocols, and this is spoken from a power lifter who used the West Side style conjugate method early on, where you're doing the maximum effort, right? So there's 2 ways of rep failure. It's the old HIIT, high intensity training, the Mike Mentzer, where you're going to repetition failure. The other way is maximum effort method, where you're using heavy weights until you basically miss or you strain against the lift for long enough. With athletes, I never do that, right? I always have a 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 reps in the tank philosophy. But from there, we can, hey, was it easy? Good, let's load up 5 more pounds. Or I like using Pat Basil's protocols of adding a rep every week before you add load. So you'll go something like a rep wave, like 6, 7, 8, or 4, 5, 6, whatever the heck it is.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5. If you can do that with the same weight, and then you add 5 to 10 pounds, you got overload in 2 kind of ways.
Yeah.
Right. But from there, you can extrapolate your quote-unquote maxes. So we don't ever have test weeks. Every day is a test week, so to speak. But it's within the parameters of what they have that day. And if you don't have if you don't have 6 reps that day, all right, we'll chop like today with Mason, right? Instead of 5 that was scheduled, we'll chop it to 3.
Yep.
Still high quality work. Do we really care about the lift max going up? Yeah, it will over time. So we're looking at trends over time, because we have a long time with these.
We don't need to get there real quick. Like, especially if you have younger athletes, we need to play the long game.
Yes, there it is, the long game.
The long game.
So yeah, there's nothing actually wrong with going to quote unquote failure, but you got to define what that failure is.
Yep.
And especially with kids who are just or younger athletes, or even just in general, right? You want good technical reps done all the time. And to me, that's the win, because if they could have more good technical reps, then it gets easier, right?
Yeah.
You're
getting better at the skill.
You become more efficient movers, right? You get stronger along the way, and you don't get hurt while you do it. You don't overstrain. So it's kind of like watching somebody run, and you see bad running technique, for like a distance person, let's say, and man, that one has bad running technique, and they get worn out after a mile. Well, if their technique got a little bit better, obviously in congruent with strength, that mile's gonna become easier and easier and easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my stuff on that. But the DB hammer stuff, went back to InnoSports. I think the things that I've taken from it are the concepts of autoregulation,
which I really like as well.
Using time. And the thing is, if you're using autoregulation, and I'll go back to the Derek Evely, like with test exercises, is you can really measure what matters. So sprints, jumps, which, like I've always said, it's easy to fuck up a lift. It is hard to fuck up a jump or a sprint or a throw.
Yeah.
You know, and that stuff is fun because it's fast. Anything
Yeah.
fast is usually fun for a lot of people.
Well, even just seeing Charlie today, we
Yeah.
had a few basketball guys. He was getting super hyped because he beat his
All-time vertical jump.
all-time vertical jump, and he was super excited. So
And how did the rest of the lift go for him?
good, very good. He was
so when you
locked
do that,
locked in, yeah.
So conceptually, I talk about that in the book, but conceptually is when you, whether
Give 'em a
when
chance
they
to
go
do it.
over, right, and they hit a PR in the jump or the sprint, rest of the day is pretty easy to coach. If they don't quite get there, then they're like, okay, I'll do better on the lift. So either way, you win.
Right.
Right, with effort level. But you got to drive that home some way with it.
Yes.
I call it an explosive block, but really it's kind of like an ingrained test exercise pattern. And I think that's kind of what DB Hammer has, and I know that's how, you know, Corfus and Fichter are notorious for timing sprints and whatever, you know, at practice, ingrained in the practice or in the workout all the time, because you want that sort of feedback, because you want to also see is this kid need more volume, less volume, this exercise, that exercise.
And
It'll kind of help you calibrate that coach's eye.
That's a lot of what DB Hammer has been doing. I've seen a lot, even on social media, a lot of drop off percentages, like for sprints. I've seen that a lot.
Yep.
Auto-regulation, like you said, increasing that volume based on how they're performing. That's what I've seen. And basically how I feel about the DB Hammer stuff is, like, I think reading the book, what was it called again? The Best Sports Training?
The best sports training book ever.
Yeah.
And it's, unfortunately, it's not, I don't even think it's in print anymore.
Yeah.
But
So
I was lucky enough, somebody sent it to me on PDF like 20 years ago, and I was like, okay.
And I was lucky enough to meet him, so to get that, and I read it, and at first I was like, what is this? Like, what's going on? But
over
then,
your head.
Yeah, but it took me a little while to read it. But then once I started dissecting every little thing, and I was like, okay, now I kind of understand what's happening. So overall, my summary, I guess.
Yeah, what conclusions did you come to?
I would say.
I know I helped you cheat on it too.
Yeah, just a little bit, but I would say it's very intricate, very intricate. Or whatever, DB Hammer got very intricate into a lot of the details of training, like super in depth, which I thought are very difficult to replicate in a weight room where.
Well, in a weight room where you have, let's say, if you have, you know,
multiple athletes.
Right. If you're training them one-on-one or 2 to 3 or 4, maybe you can do it.
Maybe, yeah, but
and they got to be skilled enough where
exactly.
that actually matters. If they're not skilled enough, you don't really need to go that deep into it.
Exactly. So I would say intricate. Another thing is it gave names to a lot of things that I am currently doing. You know, like a lot of the reactive work, and also the plyo isometric.
Plyo isomyometric, so PIM work.
Yep.
Right,
yeah. So PIM, which is traditional barbell lifts, right?
Yeah. It's
up, down, squat, up, down.
So believe it or not, folks, you can have a plyometric without it being a jump.
Yes.
So all plyometric means is the eccentric phase is used to accentuate the concentric output.
Wow. It's
so
like
that's
you're smart or something.
Fuck yeah, smart. What do you think this is?
No. No, yeah, that was like really cool.
It's called the non-impact plyometric. They do exist. I believe that is a term also by Berkashansky. Let's say non-impact plyometric.
Yeah, that was another thing that I was like, oh, this is giving names to a lot of things that I even know about. A lot of great ideas in there. A lot of different non-traditional movements. The use of more reactivity work, especially. I guess another thing I could say is the neurodom, neuro rate.
Right, the different terms of the different types of I guess training effects that you're after.
Or also the different type of athlete.
And that's measured off of where they're deficient. So there's like what is it? Neuro rate.
Neuro rate is your real bouncy.
Neuroduration.
Yep. Neuroduration is
magnitude's kind of in
duration,
the middle.
Yes, neuroduration is definitely
like pure strength work.
I feel like I've done that a lot.
Grinders.
Yeah.
Your ballistic is going to be your neuro rate.
Yes, so I've done a lot of neuroduration work, which is why now I've been dabbling in the neuro rate, and which is why when.
No, you're also a back catcher too, so a lot of that stuff indirectly, like you're consistently in that long duration isometric squat.
Which just make me so slow. I have no balance.
If you got a horrible pitcher, you may be out there for like 40 minutes.
Our pitchers are good though, so but yeah,
throw. How you doing?
But what was I gonna say about?
I don't know. You're
neuroduration
dominant.
Neuroduration dominant, and that's why I've been trying to be more bouncier, and I have seen improvements, but they're slowly coming because I'm still, like you said, in that long duration isometric constantly. Ankles are not stiff; they're very mobile. I have great like I would say great squat. Like I can get in a deep squat pretty easily.
Yeah, you can get into really good extreme positions.
Yeah,
but,
yes,
and
exactly.
one thing, Jay too is it was the other thing that going back to Jay Schroeder, but talking about like that's where I first learned about the classic lifts that we all hold up on a pedestal being arbitrary, meaning like in other words, we showed him how we squatted, and we squatted off the box and kind of wide. He goes, well, why do you do that if you're trying to be fast? And we go, we didn't know, my boss and I didn't really know how to answer him. He's like, well, no, we don't know what he means.
Yeah.
And what he talked about, any type of squat position he used was about hip width stance, or maybe slightly wider, but toes straight ahead. And then he had a stance that was called super speed, which was really close. Really close, like feet almost. I don't want to say feet almost touching, but it was definitely inside of the hips. But he would, but Jay's battery of exercise, he only had like 7 of them, 5 or 7 of them, and a lot of it was like split work, the low squat foot jumps, the depth drops, different types of depth drops, rebounding, where you're hitting and coming off, speed Russians he also did. But yeah, it seemed like it was very, very specific to athletic type
Moving
of movement.
quick,
So like
reactive.
usually sprinting, taking off, jumping.
Yeah.
Learning. He talked about absorbing force back when I was like, okay, that concept of accentuated eccentric work was like, what the hell is this sort of deal?
Yeah.
And now everybody, you see them dropping off of buildings and shit, whatever else to kind of get that.
Some of the parkour athletes are kind of insane. I've like watched. I follow some of them. I'm like, damn, like how can they do that? Like I want to see more of their training too. Just I'm interested, just because that's a high stress sport, 100%.
Yeah. Also, it's like rock climbing, where it's very open. You're usually outdoors, and you're kind of creating it on the spot.
Yeah,
There's no real program for parkour. I'm sure.
I mean, programming lifting for parkour. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think a sport like that, programming anything would what might be a detriment, because it's such an anti-program type thing. Because it's very free, it's very open. It's kind of like gymnastics, right? Where you're just kind of flip-flying, or even though they have a routine, but you're still flip-flying around, where it's more like, how do you complement those things? It's very tough, because everything's so chaotic in nature. It's very tough. I guess strength should help, but you can't.
But you can focus on certain parts.
You can't make that person 20 pounds bigger and expect them to
no.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what,
I'm saying, I guess you could focus on one concept. Like, let's say, I can't jump as far here, so let me focus on my long jump, or focus on my vertical jump, whatever. That, you know what I'm saying? Like something like that.
Yeah,
focusing on a concept. I would say that. Yeah. All right. Anyway, another up and coming thing in our industry, drop catches. A lot of coaches are doing this. I started doing it, and when I first started doing it, I did it wrong. And now more recently,
you did it wrong.
Yeah, I would say before even I met you, I think I was like trying to do them, and I didn't understand. I literally was just doing them just because I saw it on Instagram. And I fully admit that I do that with a lot of things. I don't even care, because I just want to try it out. And then like once I'm like, okay, can I dive deeper? Then I'll look into it.
Yeah.
Then I do educate myself, and that's what I did. First, I do trial and error. Like, what the hell is this?
Which is fine. Yeah,
yes, and then after a few sessions, then I educate myself. Then I apply it again, see how I feel, and now I would say I know how to program a little bit of drop catches and.
Yeah. So what you say? You say you did them wrong. What did you do wrong? What did you feel?
I just felt like I was just dropping it and not even thinking about why. I guess not having background on it. Like when a coach tells you, oh, you're gonna.
It just kind of look cool, felt good.
Yeah. Okay. Look cool, felt good. But once I started thinking about the process behind it, like, let me drop it, catch it, immediately bring it up, or whatever I'm doing.
So what is that then?
So that is reactivity. We're like...
It's a plyometric.
Plyometric, yep. Upper body plyos. That's what I like a lot. And a lot of people think, I would say some people that are low IQ don't realize how...
Well, I mean... Okay, go finish.
I would just say, like,
low IQ.
Low IQ. Like, if you see somebody doing drop catches in the gym, and you're like, what an idiot, like, and I bet people
if you're bodybuilding, bro, you would probably look at that and be like, what the hell is that?
They don't know. Control the eccentric.
Right.
Like that's
Two
how
different
you
purposes.
yeah.
I wouldn't say they're just low IQ. They're just low exposure to
Low exposure,
athletic
yeah.
sort of means. Yeah. So drop catches. That was something I actually saw Jay do first, and then it was part in that sport protocols. You saw them, but there was always a specific purpose to it, and there was different styles of them. There was just
Wait, before you start, do like a little background of drop catches for people that aren't as educated
at least
on
yeah,
them.
and I'm not saying I'm the expert on them at all. Just from what I've seen over the years. So like with Jay getting exposed to it was kind of like what you see. So if you want an insight to like Jay stuff, want to get fast, Victor has a whole lot of stuff that he does on his Instagram, and I'm sure his Patreon explains all of that. I think he even has a dedicated presentations on that. But anyways, it was just basically an upper body plyometric, but there's different ways to kind of do it. First, you can just drop catch and stop yourself, so like a depth drop.
Yes.
And you can do that with like, so drop catches are usually going to be applied to upper body mostly. So as drop catches for the lower body are your depth drops, your altitude drops, people will call them as well, or your
You could do drop catch RDLs.
reactive squat. Yeah,
I've been doing those and I really like them.
Yeah,
Because they
what do you
fire
like
they
about
fire up my hamstrings like nothing else, and I feel like they've become kind of bulletproof because you're catching it in this.
Right. So basically, what you're
Whatever.
doing.
Let me knock on wood for that one. So
What's that?
Because I said bulletproof my like I bulletproof my hamstrings.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to jinx myself, but go ahead.
I think you'll be fine. I don't think
He didn't get that joke. It flew right over him. But go ahead.
Bulletproof. What are you talking about?
No, go ahead. Just go ahead. Continue.
Oh, what the hell was I saying? All right, so with the drop catch work, again, upper body plyometric, but basically what you're going to do, and there's different ways to kind of lead up to it. So you might do like an oscillatory type rep where you're just trying to turn stuff on and off.
Yeah.
And then you can do a drop catch where you're just stopping it quickly. Where at the point of the catch,
yeah,
you're not giving any give.
Yeah.
I mean, even though if you film in slow motion, there'd be give, but very little.
Very little. Yeah.
And then where you're kind of we're just using an example of like a dumbbell drop.
Yeah,
catch
dumbbell front raise, like boom. Oh,
Yeah.
can't even do it with that.
Yeah, but there's different exercises you can use on that, leading to the full. What Jake called them, people call them drop catches. We call it rebound work. It's you're trying to get that rebound effect of the muscle. So basically, what you're going to do is start in a contracted position. Okay, you're going to let it go. You're going to separate from it, and then you're going to actively. What Jay used, the term he used was snag the weight off. Whoosh. So when you snag the weight, you are basically. So if we're doing like an upright row, you'd go here, boom, and you'd snag it out.
So go up a little bit. Yeah.
Let it go, but separate your hands from it, and then I have to essentially do like a fast pullover type motion and go get it. So really, you're turning on that antagonist muscle. So if we kind of go back to our, the way Cal Dietz explained it, triphasic is turning the agonist and antagonist on and off is where that upper end, the way those upper end performers can turn it on, turn it off.
Yeah.
So that was one way to do it. The only thing I'll say with this from a traditionalist perspective with the drop catch work is I don't know if barbells were meant for that purpose, although you can use it. And I can see people going nuts with it to the point. So like you said, trial and error. A lot of what's going to happen for most, it's going to be trial and injury, and then you'll figure out, oh shit, maybe I should have done it this way, and that's fine too if you go through at that point.
Well, again, also, I'm not going to use this for high school athletes that are just a year or two into training, or not even. Would not use that. Preface that because we're not going to use that for high school athletes. I started trying it, and I would say my training education background has been good enough where I can do that type of work.
Yeah, there's nothing, and I'll say this, everybody wants these cool, sexy, advanced looking methods, but the basics work for a long damn time for Hall of Fame coaches, right? You go back to Johnny Parker, Vermeil, I'm missing out some other ones too, like Boyd Epple, Joe Kent, Buddy Morris. All these guys.
The basics do work, but these are just the new things.
You got to look at icing on the cake versus the main course versus dessert versus whatever else, right? yeah, so drop catch work, definitely a tool in the toolbox. And there is a purpose to it. You want to you're trying to build a little bit of, I guess, that instantaneous
reactivity
yes,
type work. Be that, what is it called? Neural rate.
Neural, yeah. You're going to be neural. You're going to be fat. You know, you're going to get the fascia to kind of work, the ligaments the tendons to a certain extent.
Right.
You're training different tissues to absorb. People call it absorb force. I'm not sure if that's a proper word to use, but you're learning to instantaneously withstand it.
Yep.
And then with the rebound style work or the drop, drop catch can be just drop catch stop or drop catch rebound. Right, drop catch rebound, then you're learning to use, again, that eccentric phase to get more concentric output.
Yeah.
But you're going to be limited in what kind of weight you use there, right?
Definitely,
So don't go like trying to go
one rep
anything
max
crazy.
on a drop catch,
Yeah,
curl, bicep
I
curl.
want to say, like, what are the loading parameters for that? Like
It's hard to distinguish.
15 to 30% or something,
Yeah.
if that.
If
I
that.
mean, yeah. So drop catch, good tool in the toolbox. Don't go nuts with it.
Yeah.
And if you want to experiment, if you're semi-athletic, do it. Me, I'm an orthopedic nightmare at this. I'm not doing any of that shit.
Yeah.
If I could just do a jump in place, that's good now. But
Yeah, I would say I've liked it a lot for upper body plyometrics. It, honestly, as a throwing athlete,
Mhm.
it has my shoulder feeling a lot more, like a lot quicker and loose, honestly, sometimes too. Just being able to not just, let me bench, row, let me do just that type, biceps, triceps. Now I'm kind of getting more athletic with my upper body,
Yeah.
which is what I see definitely beneficial for athletes if they have that training age and background.
Yeah.
Definitely would be a great way to progress once the athlete is ready.
yeah, plus your needs. I mean, the softball weighs only so much, the baseball weighs only so much. In contrast to your throwing brethren, on the track side of things,
Right.
that shot puts 16 pounds.
Yep.
Right.
16. Yeah.
12 for the ladies. So their surplus of strength necessity is far more than what a softball player would need. So they would need more stuff, on the track throwers needs more on the strength speed end of things. I guess if you want to use that kind of terminology, or absolute strength.
Yeah.
If you're throwing a softball or baseball, you would
Speed
need more
strength.
speed strength,
Yep.
or that ballistic style.
Ballistic,
right?
yes.
So whatever you ballistically gotta produce, you might probably want to ballistically absorb. So there's definitely some bulletproofing.
I was gonna say
concept to
bulletproofing.
it,
I
right.
I like that concept.
Especially for the posterior shoulder. 'Cause
Yes,
that
and
stuff-
I've done it with a lot of things, and like the hamstring, like the RDL drop catches. I even like that. Like he said, bulletproofing.
And that's a great one to coordinate the
Buzzword,
psoas as well.
Yes, it's
That's-
a lot of.
And you just do them with a stick, right? I mean, you don't even do them.
No, I did it today. They were weight. Today I did it weight, but most of the time I do it with the stick.
It's like a warm up, yeah. But
Yeah.
that's a lot of timing too.
Yes. But
That's
yeah, I really like them. I would say it's very different, reactive. If you've been doing the same thing and you have like that good background training age, it's a very different type of stimulus that you can use in the toolbox.
Wakes some stuff
100%.
up.
It wakes, yes. My hamstrings the first time I did, even just with the PVC pipe.
Did you
are-
tear your hamstrings off?
No, but the next day I was sore for like 3 days.
That's your
And I was
fault.
like, damn, just like moving my body. Like, it was crazy. But yeah, different pump. Even I like doing it for arms. You get a huge pump. You feel huge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even if you want to, be more
It's
athletic,
just,
you also
you
get
can
the
manage
pump.
the impacts.
Yeah, so I definitely enjoy it. Anything more on that?
Not really. It's just, like I said, it's a good tool in the toolbox. Just, like anything else, it can be used or abused.
Definitely. Something else up and coming. I've been seeing a lot more depth drops versus landing mechanics. I've seen a lot of also memes on landing mechanics from certain coaches, and they are pretty funny.
Keep in mind the purpose of memes is to drive engagement. So
Yeah.
whether you're trying to inspire somebody or piss them off, it's
Yep. But what would you say about
landing mechanics.
landing mechanics?
So what does
versus,
that mean? What does that mean, first of all? What do you mean by landing mechanics?
I guess trying to teach an athlete how to land from a jump, right?
Okay,
But my opinion on it is
go for it.
when we're kids, we move and jump, and we don't need to teach that.
It's very reactive.
Yes,
Yes.
it's where we already teach that. Just do it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
So-
just do it in a depth drop, whether it's
Okay.
10 inches
Right.
or 50, depending like on the
So
athlete.
then what
obviously.
happens between being a kid and then growing into adolescence when you so here is I guess not an argument for, but it's just something to think about, right? So kids jump around, do whatever, everybody talks about the the squatting technique of a little baby, and it's perfect, flat back and whatever else, and so what happens
Things stiffen.
between that time and then they become pre-adolescents, adolescents, and they look like they're old people, right? They're all their postures are
So
shit.
things are stiffening, the bones are getting thicker.
Right. The
The
activity
tendons, yeah.
levels are going down, right?
Activity
The
levels as well,
freedom
yeah.
of play stuff is going down, or is decreasing, right? Not kids are outside not playing pickup anything anymore.
Yep.
They're not self-organizing stuff amongst their peers. So I guess something to think about is, okay, landing mechanics are bullshit, but what if, and I'm kind of going through this now, I have a lot of, let's just say, untrained individuals that are brand new to doing anything physical because they've done nothing for so
13,
long
12 years
that
of their
they
life.
need they need some sort of physical education. So in this case, teaching them, just a basic mechanics of where to be is not necessarily a bad thing.
So what do you think landing mechanics is then?
Landing mechanics?
Like, are you saying we need all this progression to jump and land?
Some do. I mean, if you look at I mean, well, it might be the majority of certain kids do, or they just need some sort of stimulus to get them to land off of something, right? So I'll go back to this, and it seems like landing mechanics. I think what most are seeing, it's a very programmed, very low stimulus sort of deal, and then kind of letting them loose, let athletes be athlete, or letting athlete. That crowd is kind of freedom, free play, whatever else. So I mean to say on that, for me, landing mechanics is nothing more than having some sort of, you're going to train a landing or how to stick a landing, which is I think it's a tool to teach. How should I say, eccentric loading, right? Victor does a lot of this stuff too, and he uses the parameter. Going back, DB Hammer. DB Hammer parameter is you'll see how high they can vertical jump, and then you'll do a depth jump, and then you can see how high they go over if they're too low. So if they're lower than what they regular vertical jump, then you're going to heighten that and teach them to stick, teach them to stick from higher and higher heights.
Yep.
And that is one thing I can say from playing with like Mason specifically was he was in the 19s and 20 vertical jump when I got him. January, I went slightly above that for his jump in between our leg stuff, where he would just land, stick a landing, stick a landing, stick a landing, not sink.
I think we're missing each other here because I like depth drops. Like I'm saying, that's good.
To me, that's
good.
a landing mechanic.
You see, I'm saying landing mechanic more as
snap downs,
like snap downs, and like I'm just like that's so dumb to me.
Think of that.
Like you can jump off a box and do that, and that's good. That's good. Yes.
Yeah, but where does it start for somebody who's never done that before? On the ground?
Say just do it. No, just do it. I just say put a low box. Just go a low box. I would say just do it.
You can do this snap. I mean, I don't see you saying. I think the value in snap downs might be just awareness, right? Where you're going to put that probably like in a warm up or something like that, or early in a training stage, right? Where you're teaching to reactively get down to athletic stance. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Now, is it going to be a high level stimulus to develop strength and athleticism? No, it may be just a kinesthetic awareness stuff, because maybe that type of trainee just doesn't know how to essentially snap into position.
Bless you.
Thank you.
But like you said earlier, bless you.
I'm a double sneezer, sorry.
Like you said earlier, you said let athletes be athletes, and you also brought up how, oh my god, I just lost my whole train of thought.
It's okay.
Cut this
It
out.
happens.
What were you just saying? Landing mechanics.
Well, you have a crowd where, okay, so basically what I think is the disconnect is you have the white coat trainers who love to pull research out of their ass, or let's just say most likely have some sort of background in like physical therapy, right? Nothing wrong with physical therapy. Physical therapy serves a purpose to get an injured being to a state of homeostasis, state of baseline, where you can just walk around and stuff, right? Get back to, like, if you had somebody that blew out their knee, They're basically coming from a knee repair. They can't walk around. They can't run around. They can't do anything, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to get them to a point where they were right before they got injured. Sometimes it's someone who plays a little harder, runs, lifts weights, exercises, or if it's an athlete, okay, we got to get them just to the point where they can train again, right? But the problem is, if you're going into strength conditioning and that's your, let's say that's your only,
Thought
that's been
process
your only
or
path,
whatever, yeah.
you're going to have a bias toward that. And I don't want to say even if it's, if you know, like I say I'm a conservative coach. Like I'll start slow and go, but
not that slow to the
not
point
that,
of
yeah,
PT.
not to the
like,
point.
I
of
understand what you're
where-
saying. Like,
Put it this way: if you have a massage table or a rehab table in the middle of your gym, and you're doing all of these fucking external rotation band drills, whatever the fuck walks, and whatever the you see how we warm up? We warm up to sprint. We warm up as close as we can to a track athlete.
yeah,
Right? Because we're getting ready to sprint. We're getting ready to be athletic. All the other stuff in between, our push-up progression, whatever, that's kind of warming us up to lift.
yeah.
Because
It's
we
warming
got to
us
go
up,
get
yeah.
freaking strong.
Yeah.
But if you're doing all this rehabby shit,
It's
or
just a
you're
waste of
foam
time, I
rolling,
think.
come on.
It's
come
just
on.
it's just a waste of time. I think.
Unless you're really truly beat up and you have to do that stuff, like if you're a seasoned athlete and you have to do that just to kind of get the ball rolling, that's fine. Along that end, I actually prefer more of the original strength stuff. It's awesome because
100%.
there's going to be a neurostimulus on that, and it's very low impact, and you're greasing all the grooves on those movements. But
Yes,
you're
greasing the
training a
groove.
vestibular system. You're rocking, you're rolling, you're spinning,
Crawling,
all of
Yeah.
that stuff.
doing some push-ups to
Right.
twist, getting the back also loose. Push-ups.
To me, that
upper
should
body
be
strengthening.
the basis of
That
anybody's
should, yeah.
rehabilitation, not all of the other whatever tests they do to fulfill the the insurance thing.
I just don't.
you know.
Yeah, I think I'm the type of coach where.
But I think that's where the landing mechanics crowd comes from.
Yes.
Right, and then you got the actual coaches crowd coming from. Man, you got to let them be athletes.
No, literally.
I
just-
totally see that.
And I'm the type of coach where if I see somebody doing something not necessarily right, we let them figure it out too.
Yeah.
You can't just give
Gotta
them all
give 'em
these.
room to fail.
They're gonna fail, especially if they're just starting out. They may not know how to squat, do